Good morning to you. It is Saturday, November 12th, 2016. I'm Abby Huntsman, and we begin with a Fox News alert. Anarchy in America as radical left-wing activists riot in the streets, angry at Donald Trump, the president-elect, calling for unity. Is it time for the current president to join him and end all of this chaos?
And President-elect Donald Trump unveiling his official transition team, led by none other than Vice President-elect Mike Pence. So why is Chris Christie on the chopping block? He's out. And what can we expect in the days and weeks to come?
Plus, millions of Americans cheered at the promise to prosecute Hillary Clinton. Well, this morning, though, there's word that the president-elect, well, maybe he's ready to forgive and forget. I'm ready for coffee. You should be, too.
After that burger you just ate.
I know, I ate a burger.
Mayonnaise.
We got pizza coming because it's National Pizza Day, and mornings are better with friends. You guys know I don't eat breakfast.
Right, you just had a burger?
No.
When
But
I
it's-
see things on the menu for the show. Yeah.
Well, there's pizza, burgers, there's like sliders out there. What else is out there? It was all kinds
There's
of...
more
Got a lot
pizza,
of
too.
There was a camouflage hat. Did you eat that, too?
I will if I have to.
So you didn't see, but Pete just walked in with basically mayonnaise running down
Yeah.
his chin, eating a big burger. And if you
morning
can't
television.
see his coffee cup, but it literally is like a cup of cream with like just a touch of coffee.
Yeah, that's it.
You love
I like
it.
it light and
You
sweet.
love
What
it.
can I say?
You know
Sorry.
You're a
Tea,
simple
I mean,
guy, Pete. You're
I
a
am.
simple guy.
Good morning,
Most
everyone.
men are.
Welcome into Fox and Friends on this Saturday morning. We hope you're waking up with your family, enjoying a little cup of coffee this morning. We got some politics to talk about this morning because overnight we're learning more about Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump's transition team. We had heard that it was going to be Chris Christie, right? He was heading up this transition team. Well, according to Ed Henry and his own sources, apparently Donald Trump didn't like the fact that Chris Christie was stacking the deck with Christie loyalists, and so he's out. He is gone, and now Mike Pence is heading up this transition team.
Yeah, and I think that it sounds like they could very well find a position in the administration for Governor Chris Christie.
Maybe.
But this might be the smartest
If
move.
he's not prosecuted.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
you still have that going on. But
Right.
look, you have Vice President-elect Mike Pence, who, as we have seen on this campaign up to this point, has played a very important role with Donald Trump, with Congress. And he has worked behind the scenes oftentimes when things got a little bit uneasy, when you had members of the House and the Senate say, we're not sure about this. You know, we don't necessarily agree with what Mr. Trump has been saying. And he would go in and sit down with them and say, this is too important. You guys have got to stick by us. And he was very successful at that.
He's been the explainer in a lot of that. And a lot of people see this as the elevation of Pence. He's a D.C. guy. He's a conservative. He understands foreign policy. Chris Christie will still remain a vice chairman, apparently, but you've got Dr. Ben Carson, Newt Gingrich, Rudy Giuliani, Jeff Sessions,
Also-
General
Palin's name is
Flynn,
being
Reince
thrown
Priebus,
around.
and the three kids, too, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric
Well,
Trump.
and that's an important point to make because, you know, I'm someone, you've been through a campaign before.
Mm-hmm.
I have as well with my dad, and you realize going through it that it is so important to keep the people that know you well close
Right.
to you because they're the ones that understand you and they know what's best for you. So I think that's been the smartest move he's made so far, is having his family members with him
Who will
along
be-
the whole journey.
And Kellyanne Conway, of course, who's been his voice during this. Will she then take on a communications role? So many questions yet around all of this. There's his kids, so they'll play a vital role in this transition to power through the holidays here.
But this will dominate speculation for the next couple of weeks. This transition team is going to be deciding who goes where.
But we hate to speculate, Pete.
Of course.
The media hates to
So will
speculate.
Hillary Clinton be prosecuted? Remember during the campaign, of course, and during the debates, Donald Trump said, you know, that it was during I think the final debate when he said, you'd be in jail. To her. And so now questions about whether or not he's going to actually appoint a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. Well, he's done an interview that'll be on 60 Minutes on Sunday night, and he seemed to concede the point that, you know what, we've got some bigger fish to fry right now, jobs, immigration, and other things. We're not going to really be focusing on Hillary Clinton. Listen. And then he also talked about the phone call that they had after
Yeah,
the
so I
election.
mean, translating forward to the phone call, first in the Wall Street Journal, he was quoted as saying, it's not something I've given a lot of thought to, putting Hillary Clinton or prosecuting her, because I want to solve health care, jobs, border control, and tax reform. And you know, the reality is you win an election, you have political capital. How much do you want to spend on prosecuting your former opponent, even if it was illegal?
Right.
How much do you want to focus on your agenda moving forward? And he also has had contact with her, because after the election day, obviously the opponent calls to concede to the winner, and to be a fly on that line and hear what went on there. But this is how Donald Trump described the phone call that he had with Hillary Clinton.
You have to remember these are two people that were good friends before all of this happened. And across the board, you look at Hillary Clinton, you look at President-elect Donald Trump, even President Obama, how they've handled it just the past few days after we know now the results of this election. They've all come to the podium and said, this is a time for healing. This is a time for this country to come together. That's what we're hearing from them. But what we're seeing play out on the streets right now is not necessarily what we're hearing from our leaders. We are seeing chaos. We are seeing protests, and we are seeing people that are up in arms and oftentimes getting violent. This is not the country, Clayton. This is not who we are.
No, I mean, it's disgusting. Here you see Portland, you see people trashing stores and looting storefronts and stealing stuff. And look, these are not spontaneous protests. It's not like someone's angry about the election. And besides, where were these people before the election? You know, we have the right in this country to protest. That's what this country, this nation is founded on, protest, right? But where were these people before the election? We see that voting numbers, exit polls show that there was a big lack of enthusiasm, so people stayed home and frankly didn't vote. In Philadelphia, the African-American vote was down significantly. There are exit polls showing across this country that people simply stayed home, and now they're coming out.
But look at these videos, Pete. I mean, you watch this play out. I mean, this is so ugly.
This is lawlessness, first of all. You can protest all you want. You have a right to protest, but just because you have the right doesn't make it right, especially when you're burning businesses, throwing objects at cops. At some point, you have to reestablish law and order. Protests like this are part of what propelled Donald Trump forward. You saw Barack Obama encouraging and exciting some of it with Black Lives Matter, police forces not being able to deal with it the way you would want to. And a lot of this is internal to the left as well. You've got Bernie supporters here who feel like they got double-rigged. They got beat by Trump in the general election, and they got Hillary Clinton, a candidate that didn't ultimately serve them very well.
They feel like Bernie Sanders maybe could have beat President-elect
Trump. Yeah, whether that's true or not, that's a sentiment amongst these types of people.
Remember over the summer when these protests were happening, the Black Lives Matter protests and others, that MoveOn.org was behind it, sending out emails, basically marshaling people into these areas that they weren't even, like, that people didn't even live in these areas, and they were driving in to be a part of these protests.
Yeah. David Webb said earlier on our show, that's exactly what had happened. There were a lot of rallies planned for Hillary Clinton. Everyone thought for sure she was going to win. Then she didn't. Well, let's flip them around, turn the switch, and turn them into
it's a lot of disgusting, too. I mean, people, spray painting and burning and doing things to mosques, yelling at immigrants in this country.
Death threats.
Burning the American flag.
Telling Asian Americans to go back to Asia. I mean, come on,
no,
people.
This is bad. But at a certain point, you wonder, does President Obama need to come out and speak to this? Because this is a time where, as I said, we need healing, we need some leadership. Someone that we did not expect to come out to talk about the election and just sort of this healing is Oprah Winfrey, right? She said, take a deep breath. Take a listen to what she said.
We all need a deep breath.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's ultimately right. I mean, this is a woman who had endorsed Barack Obama twice, Hillary Clinton, definitely on that side of the aisle, but recognizes, let's step back for a second. We have elections. Elections have consequences. They have winners. And if they're going to mutually respect each other, which is what's happened, you got to give credit to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton for reaching out positively to Donald Trump. He's conducted himself very well in these first few days. These protests are not productive and not helpful, and certainly not a signal.
And it felt so real, as we've been talking about. This has been a long week for everybody. And you forget that the election was just a few days ago, but it really became real for me, and I think so many others, when we saw President-elect Trump go to the White House and sit down with President Obama and shake hands. I mean, that's when it became very real. Of like, this is a new chapter. This happened.
It was real. The front page of the New York Times, that photo of President Obama reaching over and shaking Donald Trump's hand at the White House was, this image right here, unbelievable.
It's fascinating that they had never met either. And I also
didn't realize that,
No, they hadn't, and it was supposed to be a 15 to 20-minute meeting that turned into over an hour. You got to believe that Donald Trump sat in that Oval Office and said, "Hey, I may not have liked you. I opposed you at every step, but I at least am willing to hear what you have to say because of the weight and the gravity of that office."
Well, I think President-elect Trump realized now, I'm going to be the next president. This is the most important job I could ever have, and I've got to listen to what they have to say and take this seriously.
Yeah, I think that's happening.
All right, we have some other headlines to get to this morning. We begin with a Fox News alert. A deadly explosion rocking Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. At least 4 people are killed, with more than a dozen injured. The Taliban is claiming responsibility for the attack after a member of the terrorist group was able to gain access to the base and detonate an explosive vest. There is no immediate word on the identity of those victims. And officers under attack. 2 Idaho cops are shot, one critically during a gun battle with a wanted fugitive. That gunman is now dead. Police were searching for Marco Romero. You can see him there when gunfire erupted in a Boise neighborhood. Recently released from prison, authorities believe Romero was responsible for another shooting on Tuesday that left 2 people hurt. One officer just out of surgery this morning, and this is the 3rd police-involved shooting in that area in just the last 24 hours. And an airline pilot playing referee between 2 passengers whose political argument got out of hand while on the tarmac. The pilot then warning everyone else. Listen.
Going to be in a metal tube at 35,000 feet to bring up politics. Okay, I understand everybody has their opinions. That's fine. And what I do ask is that as people, we have the common decency to respect each other's decisions.
Unreal. The United Airlines pilot going on to warn passengers if it happened again, they would be kicked off of that plane. And was the Hillary Clinton hiking photo staged? Some people believe that it was. A woman ran into the former candidate in the woods in Chappaqua, supposedly by chance just the day after she lost the election. Margot Gerster was hiking in Chappaqua with her daughter when she spotted Hillary and Bill Clinton walking their dogs. But critics now believe their meeting was not so random, especially since they've apparently met before. Here's a picture on Gerster's Facebook surface showing her at a Clinton fundraiser, and that fundraiser was actually hosted by the Gerster's mother.
Okay,
Wait, that's a twist.
What about Secret Service? You're out in the woods. There's going to be Secret Service out there in the woods somewhere. Come on.
Oh,
right?
Look, I'm in the woods.
There's a random person walking by with a baby.
I ran into you. Oh. Need to
she,
take a photo.
yeah.
I don't
Maybe
know.
send it out. I mean, come on, it's too much.
Anyway, let us know your thoughts. Still ahead, the president-elect vowing to get rid of Obamacare. So what is the Republicans' plan to replace it? Texas Congressman and Dr. Michael Burgess has an idea, and he joins us live next.
That'll definitely be interesting. And Hillary Clinton may be done with politics, but there's word this morning that the Clinton dynasty will continue for the one and only Chelsea. Maybe for Congress? We shall see.
This healthcare law is collapsing under its own weight. And so to your specific question about repealing and replacing Obamacare, this Congress, this House majority, this Senate majority has already demonstrated and proven we're able to pass that legislation and put it on the president's desk. Problem is President Obama vetoed it. Now we have President Trump coming who is asking us to do this.
Well, Obamacare may be on life support now that Republicans control Congress and the White House, but what is their plan to replace and repeal that legislation?
That's right. Big question. Joining us now to weigh in is Texas Congressman and medical doctor, OBGYN, Michael Burgess. Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning. This is the big question. It's the million-dollar question. Obamacare...
No, it's a trillion-dollar question.
Trillion-dollar question. Good point. What is the plan to repeal and replace?
Well, I think you had Speaker Ryan on just a moment ago. You showed a clip of him, and Speaker Ryan has tasked, or did last year, task the House, let's put down our ideas on paper. Let's not just be having people having to guess at this. So that work has already been done. But look, going forward, there will be a new Congress sworn in. This will come through the committees of jurisdiction. The new Congress will actually decide on the policies. The good news is that we've now got a willing partner down in the White House who's at least willing to talk to us about this. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to have been frozen out. And I think Democrats, if they were honest, would admit this as well. We've just been absolutely frozen out about any sort of ideas with the Obama administration. Now, look, one thing that could happen, and it could happen the day after Inauguration Day, the relaxation of the individual mandate, one of the most coercive parts of the Affordable Care Act, something that has no part in a free society. The new Secretary of Health and Human Services could begin to grant hardship waivers to Americans who are having a tough time with Obamacare. President Clinton outlined, he said it's a crazy system. You pay more money, you get less benefits. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. Okay, you get a hardship waiver. You're no longer going to be penalized if you don't buy Obamacare.
Yeah, so President-elect Donald Trump sat down with President Obama just a couple days ago for over an hour, and here's what he said about that meeting. He said he told President Obama that I will look at his suggestions, and out of respect, I will do that. Either Obamacare will be amended or repealed and replaced. I want to ask you, because one of the biggest mistakes I think that President Obama made early on in his presidency was basically shoving down Obamacare down the American people's throats, passing it only through partisan lines. How important is it for President-elect Trump to actually listen to both sides of the aisle to figure out what is the best plan moving forward? Because as you said, this is a trillion-dollar question.
Yeah, well, first off, you don't ever want to do that. I think what the history lesson of Obamacare is, you don't want to do things under one party, just one party being on board, because when you get into trouble, and you invariably will when these things get to the agencies, when you get into trouble, you need friends on both sides of the question. And the other thing is, a big missing piece of what I thought was a big miss by the Obama administration, why didn't you involve the governors? And actually, at this point, I am really looking forward to our governors, our state legislatures, to step up and tell Washington, look, you defend the border and deliver the mail. We'll take care of our people who have pre-existing conditions. That would be a very refreshing change, wouldn't it?
Congressman, you mentioned very briefly, you mentioned pre-existing conditions. That's one of the hedges that President-elect Trump just made, that maybe we keep protections for that. How do you contain costs if you're guaranteeing coverage? Briefly.
Well, actually, states were doing a reasonable job with that. They needed some help from the federal government prior to Obamacare, so that's one thing. But do remember, pre-existing conditions is a feature of the individual market. People in the large group market, people with employer-sponsored insurance, this is not the problematic situation that it is for folks in the individual market. That's what needs to be fixed.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Congressman Mike Burgess, thanks for being with us this morning. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, well, pollsters around the country got the election all wrong. Almost all of them did. But Donald Trump's team did not. They nailed it. So what did they see in the data that everyone else missed? One of Donald Trump's pollsters will be with us soon with the Inside Scoop.
And could this be the new leader of the Democratic Party?
We're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House!
That's what they need right there.
Yeah, seriously, Howard Dean wants to succeed Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We've got more on that coming up.
We'll see. Welcome back on this Saturday. A quick look at your consumer headlines. The Dow Jones finishing the week of this election on a record high. It closed more than 18,800 points at that level, just days after fear-mongering that it would plunge after Mr. Trump won the White House. That's good news, but some not so good news for the company Grubhub. The company's stock sinking 4% just one day after the CEO asks his own employees to out themselves as President-elect Trump supporters, and if they did so, to resign, saying he had no place for them at all. Well, it turns out some investors have no place for Grubhub in light of that. Clayton, over to you.
Thanks, Pete. Well, it's no secret that pollsters around the country got the election all wrong. Most were certain that Hillary Clinton's chances at securing the presidency were all but locked up. But the pollsters in the Trump campaign saw something very different, and they got it right. Here with what they saw and how they capitalized on it is Trump campaign pollster Adam Geller. Adam, nice to see you this morning. Welcome.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, how did you guys get it right? How did the Hillary people not know that, for instance, like Western PA was like Trump country suddenly? What was going on in Michigan? How did you guys get it right?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is we had a smart team of people who are really diving into the data. You know, you can't just look at the top lines. You can't just conclude anything based on the fact that you're down a point here or 2 points there. You have to look at the totality of it. Who wants change? Who's most likely to show up? Does the 2012 model match reality, or is it time to toss it and really let the poll tell us what the poll wants to say?
Let's go to Wisconsin. I want to show what the Real Clear average looked like, Real Clear Politics average looked like on November 7th. There it was. Clinton 46 to Trump. So in Wisconsin, Clinton's crushing it. And then the actual results a day later, Trump 47 to Clinton 46. Not even, I mean, that was way off.
Well, yeah, but if you look at those numbers, it's 46.8 was the polling and 46.9 was the election for Clinton. What the top lines don't tell you is how we're undecided's going to break. You know, one of the most important lessons we can all learn from this is that we've got to go beyond the top line numbers. In polls, there's always undecided voters. And figuring out how those undecided voters are going to break goes a long way to figuring out what may happen on Election Day.
Because you guys, I remember when we were talking to Jason Miller right during a commercial break like a week before, he said, you know, I think we're going to be heading to Minnesota. Our numbers are showing that Minnesota is getting really tight. And sure enough, you guys planned a trip to Minnesota right before the election, and it ended up really tight. And the Clinton people didn't see it.
Well, you know, I don't know if it was for lack of trying that they didn't see it, but, you know, to us, when you talk about some of these states,
like Pennsylvania. Let's take a look at Pennsylvania.
Sure. I mean, you know, in Pennsylvania, Romney lost by 5 points. in 2012, you know, we look at, again, some of these numbers and we see this incredibly tight race. And what we see is opportunity. You know, the important thing to remember, too, is as campaign pollsters, and it was, again, a talented team, we want to change the numbers. If we see a tie score, we say, let's go in there and win it.
Well, here, and you look at that number on the screen, I mean, so the Clinton numbers were pretty spot on. Again, 46.2 to 47. You saw the same thing in Michigan. You saw the same thing in Wisconsin. The Trump numbers were wrong. So the pollsters just got the Trump numbers wrong.
Well, so because of the fact that so many voters wanted change, there was one change candidate, and that was Donald Trump. And Clinton was then the functional incumbent. And a lot of times in politics, undecided voters don't go to the incumbent or the functional incumbent, they go to the challenger. In this case, it was the change candidate.
Or they stayed home, like in the case of Philadelphia.
Well, they did. We saw that, too.
Adam, great to see you this morning.
Thank you so much.
I find this stuff absolutely fascinating. Donald Trump shaking up his transition team, putting Mike Pence in charge. Chris Christie is out. What can we expect from this change? One of the newest members of the team joins us straight ahead. And Hillary Clinton may be done with politics, but there's word this morning that the Clinton dynasty might continue. With Chelsea Clinton for Congress, Ed Henry is here to react to that story next. He's got his sources.
Welcome back. Well, we've got Ed Henry joining us on the couch this morning. It was.
How are you? Nice to see you. We want to talk about transition teams this morning. You have some good sources on this, and Chris Christie is out.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think it's just about Bridgegate. I've been talking to some people inside the Trump transition who say there was a little frustration at the top that Chris Christie was bringing in a lot of his own people who were loyal to him. And as jobs are being doled out, the cabinet is being thrown together. The point is about Donald Trump, obviously. And I think what's the real story is about Mike Pence rising. He was very effective as a vice presidential candidate. Now as vice president-elect, we're going to see him running this transition. Why is that important? Because I think moving forward in terms of governing, Mike Pence is going to be Donald Trump's best ambassador on Capitol Hill.
Dick Cheney did the same for George Bush.
Well, that's also why he picked him to be his vice presidential
He wasn't a backbencher. He was a House Republican leader not too long ago, was very effective as a communicator, going on the talk shows. And Donald Trump's going to need that because he can't be doing as many interviews now. Sure. He's a commander-in-chief.
And a conservative. We've got a graphic of all the transition team with Mike Pence atop it now. You've got very familiar faces, many of which have been on this channel. We've seen as surrogates for Trump, as well as the three kids. I mean, what does that grouping right there tell you about the types of people that will fill a Trump administration?
I think that you're right to mention his children. They were very influential, Eric, Don Jr., and Ivanka, in campaigning. They're going to be very influential in governing, whether they have jobs or not. Chances are they're going to be running the Trump organization. I mean, there's been a transition in the last 24 hours. They're moving towards, you know, Donald Trump actually pulling out blind trust. And the kids who are already running a big part of it will be doing more of that, but they're going to be involved in the administration.
Well, they've got to pick,
no matter what.
They've got to pick thousands of jobs. So, you know, we've mentioned some names, but we're going to hear about more names as days come on and we figure out sort of who he's actually going to pick. Because, as you said, he's now going to be president, so he can do whatever he wants to do.
To a point, because he's still got to get the Senate to get these nominations through.
You know, and that's a great point because people don't always understand that you can't just put anyone forward. They actually have to get
And that's why we're hearing like Kelly Ayotte, for example, who just lost a very tight race in New Hampshire, very influential on defense policy. That'd be significant, I think, Pete, because, look, number one, as a former senator, Democratic senators are a little more, let's slap the back a little bit. But also, she is very influential on military policy. It'd be the first female defense secretary.
I want to talk about the Democrat. I want to talk about the future of the Democratic Party in a moment, but you and I were just talking in the commercial break. What does it mean to be a Republican this morning?
Look,
where is the future of the Republican Party?
I think victory can hide a lot of problems, and, you know, we were talking off camera about how, sure, Donald Trump got a better share of the African-American vote than Mitt Romney or John McCain, but it was still a minuscule amount more, 8%.
Still a lot of work to do.
So that means 92% for Hillary Clinton. Yes, Republicans have more work to do. And so I think if Ben Carson, we keep hearing him as Health and Human Services Secretary or something else, he has to not just be a cabinet secretary. He's got to be somebody that the new president deploys into cities like Detroit, where he campaigned very effectively, Ben Carson, but go to African-American small businesses and engage with them and involve them in the economic policy,
so
not
winning,
just for show.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. If winning covers up so much, then losing reveals everything. And on the Democrat side, you've got chaos, and the DNC chair is the conversation we're looking at right now, could project two very different futures.
And Howard Dean's now saying, I want to take it over again.
Sure. Keith Ellison, there's Howard Dean. Keith Ellison, very liberal. Howard Dean, who was DNC chair before, had a 50-state strategy, which was a good idea for Democrats. Go to states that Democrats were ignoring in the South and in the Midwest. They need to go back there. Look what happened in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and even Minnesota, as you know, where you're from. You know, Donald Trump almost won.
He almost won
1%.
There's a lot of hope there. But the other candidate that is talked about right now in circles is Keith Ellison, a Muslim congressman from Minnesota, backed by Bernie Sanders.
Right.
What would his ascension say about the future?
It would say that there is buyer's remorse within the Democratic Party. It would be a new face of the party, as you say, as a Muslim American, number one. But number two, buyer's remorse about why they didn't go with Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
Like, look, you know, Donald Trump may have still beaten Bernie Sanders, but I think there are a lot of Democrats saying Bernie Sanders would have gotten the millennials, gotten the progressives who, I was at those rallies. He had way more excitement, a lot more enthusiasm than Hillary Clinton. And just as Donald Trump got that white working class enthused,
what about
Bernie Sanders could have done that with the progressives?
What about Harold Ford Jr.? He was actually one Democrat who was saying, look, Donald Trump's going to win this.
Don't ignore him.
He kept saying that. Yeah, he was saying it. He said, do not ignore Donald Trump. He saw something that other Democrats were ignoring.
I think you're right. I'd watch him as potentially DNC chair or somebody who starts pulling things together.
Well, you were talking about the bench, and it seems like the Democrats don't have a deep bench of people to prop up going forward. But Chelsea Clinton has been rumored now, speaking of a bench,
the Clinton bench,
saying that she might want to run for Congress in New
maybe
York, in Chappaqua.
Yeah, maybe she'll run for Congress. I don't really buy it for two reasons. One, I think I'm hearing from a lot of senior Democrats the buyer's remorse. They want to move on from the Clintons overall. And no offense to Chelsea Clinton, but if you look at the Clinton Foundation and some of the issues that popped up, she's been very influential.
Her wedding maybe paid for by the foundation.
Paid for with charity funds. That was an allegation. It wasn't proven, but it came out in WikiLeaks. That's not really a good platform for run for Congress, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, you pick a guy like Keith Ellison, who's actually very extreme and a bomb thrower. I mean, you could see even more divisiveness.
But you may see the left say they want to rise up and say the problem was that Hillary Clinton was too much of an insider.
They might say Bernie Sanders 4 years from now again.
His wife was on CNN yesterday saying Bernie's looking at 2020. I think he'll be 78 years old. So more power to him.
Well, Ed, great to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Thanks, Ed. You know who will be happy is Larry David.
Oh, yeah.
He is so good at that impression.
Yeah, let's turn the page from politics to Christmas.
Well, he's talking about Bernie Sanders, though, which kind of reminds you of Santa Claus.
Right.
I'm
just
saying.
With the beard, right?
Oh, and the free stuff. It's the free stuff.
Oh, Rick Reitmuth is at Santa's Wonderland this morning. Rick, where are you?
I am at Bass Pro Shops at Santa's Wonderland. It begins tonight. I've got Teresa Vale here with me to take us all through all the great things that people can expect when you go to Bass Pro Shops.
Yes, in the Santa's Wonderland. Right here, we're at the shooting arcade. If you want to...
I got to practice.
Okay, let's see this.
I mean, you do this for a living.
Kind of, not really. We've got this. We've got the foam shooter arcade. We've got the Big Dig excavation area.
Teresa and I have been practicing at this for about the last hour, and I've lost every time to her.
Every time. Thank you for admitting that.
More about you than me, because you're such a good shot. All right, so there's a lot of crowds because there's so many cool, fun things for people when they come here.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do to kind of help people with the crowds?
So we recommend getting a Bass Pass, and that reserves your spot in line while you go play in Santa's Wonderland or browse through the store. It just, reserves your place in this virtual line.
This is kind of like Disneyland, where you can go and so you can make sure you get everything.
This is the foam shooter arcade. Did you just get a bullseye?
No, they got an absolute nothing. You've been practicing and practicing. All right, hey, you go out. You can go play with the laser arcade.
Let's see it.
All right, so this is my favorite thing. What do you call this thing? Aside from
foam shooter arcade. Oh!
There you go.
Make note to the camera, that did not happen during practice.
That is not true. I hit everyone. All right, you guys have lots of toys and new toys this year.
Yeah, lots of new toys for 2016. We're bringing back the Lincoln Logs. This is the 100th anniversary. I know, crazy, right? 100th anniversary. Just tons of fun, lots of hours of entertainment. That's the Glow Grizzly remote control helicopter, glows in the dark. It's supposed to be on. You can turn it on.
I got it.
Okay, you got it?
Okay.
Maybe?
Wait.
Did you turn it on? Okay.
All right, so this is an amazing thing.
It is an amazing thing, and
it breaks, but it doesn't break.
It's unbreakable, so it's great for you and for kids.
All right, so this is supposed to be for kids, but I picture dads on Christmas morning taking all of their kids' toys and doing this. One last thing, not only can you get your pictures taken with Santa Claus for free, but Santa, when kids write their letters to you, you answer every single one of them?
Every single one. The elves, myself, and Mrs. Claus, we're all answering letters right now.
That is amazing. We got to put everybody to work. It's a family affair in the North Pole. That is it right here. Tons going on with Santa Wonderland at Bass Pro Shops. We have much more coming up in the next hour. We'll tell you all about. Guys.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Love it, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. I'm writing my letter right now.
You know what? I love that. It's like the old days, though. We didn't have to pay for photos with Santa. You want a burger with mayonnaise?
Yep.
You up on that.
All right, coming up, Donald Trump shaking up his transition team, as we've been talking about, putting Mike Pence in charge. What can we expect from this change? One of the newest members of that team is joining us next.
And it's an unfriending frenzy after the election. People cutting ties with people who don't agree with them on Facebook. Yeah, Kurt the Cyber Guy says that makes the problem worse. He explains why.
Welcome back. And a major shakeup within the Trump transition team. President-elect Donald Trump has now promoted Mike Pence to the role of chairman, replacing Governor Chris Christie, who will now serve as the vice chairman.
So what can we expect from this change? Let's ask a member of that team, Anthony Scaramucci, who is also the author of Hopping Over the Rabbit Hole. Anthony, did I get your name correct?
It's pretty good.
Scaramucci.
Scaramucci. That's all right. That's good.
All right.
Scaramucci.
I've heard everything in my life, so that's good.
We haven't had enough coffee yet. So, Anthony, all right, what happened here? Chris Christie, so he's not out, but he's, when you get demoted, I mean, what's going on here?
No, how can you say that he's demoted? Because you have the vice president-elect of the United States is coming into Washington as number 2 person in Washington. And so I think all Mr. Trump was trying to do is give Governor Pence or Vice President-elect Pence the role that he thinks he deserves to have in terms of how he's going to help him run and organize the government. And so Chris saw him yesterday with Mayor Giuliani. I think Chris understands that. He's done an enormous job for President-elect Trump over the last 3 or 4 months forming the transition team. We're good to go in terms of slots that get filled. There's 4,700 jobs that have to be placed over the next 9 weeks and over the next 3 months. And so I don't see it as a demotion as much as I see it. We have the vice president-elect of the United States who's going to arguably be the number 2 most powerful person in government. And I don't think Chris sees it any differently than that.
So, Anthony, your face is the bottom right corner of that pyramid there. You're a member of this presidential transition team. That's right there. That's you.
And that's my Fox News photo.
There you go.
That's my Fox. That's my
we
Fox
had it ready
portrait.
to go. Easy to use.
Thank you. I
but
appreciate it.
you're a member of this executive committee. Pull back the curtain. What will you be doing to vet potential?
And what are the conversations being had behind closed doors?
So there's a couple of things to think about for the American people. Number one, we need to organize the White House the way Mr. Trump works and the way he is styled as a human being. So we're not looking at old books or academic studies. We're saying, okay, this is how Mr. Trump operates. This is his circle of trust. These are the people that can influence him, that he listens to. And here's how he makes decisions. And so we're really trying to reverse engineer the White House so that it works for Mr. Trump. I think that's the absolute critical importance.
So how does it work for Mr. Trump? People point to Abraham Lincoln with a team of rivals, right? People who actually would rival him, would challenge him. And then you had others who thought that the other administrations had too many yes men surrounding the president, sort of, sycophants who would never challenge the president. Where does Trump fall down in that?
Well, geez, I think there's one of the misnomers about him that people he doesn't listen to or people don't challenge. I mean, you got some pretty tough guys on that list. You got Mayor Giuliani. You've got Governor Chris Christie. Governor Pence is a little bit softer style than those two. Believe me, he's a very tough guy. And the thing I know about Mr. Trump in the last 6 months is that he really does listen. He likes it straight. And so we're going to surround him with the people that I think have the strength of personality to help him make these decisions. Remember, the American people have to understand, if it gets to the president, that means there's 5,000 other people in government that could not make that decision. And so these are very, very difficult decisions.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
And so we got to make sure that people around him are going to give him the advice that he needs to help him do this. But he's got terrific judgment, Mr. Trump, and he's got great political instincts.
Right. We forget the election was just a few days ago, and leading up to that, there was a lot of speculation from the pollsters, from the pundits, from the mainstream media that this was going to be over, and it was going to be a win for Hillary Clinton. Give us a sense of what was going on with the team, because you spoke to Mr. Trump that day. He was convinced he was going to win still.
I'll tell you, the person that was absolutely unwavering through this whole thing was Mr. Trump. His head of security, Keith Mueller, has the greatest line about him. He'll sink the 35-foot
putt. He'll have his trench coat on at Madison Square Garden, and he'll be at the foul line, and he'll hit all net in front of 17,000 people. And so this is a winner, and this is a guy that really wants to win now on behalf of the American people. One thing that people need to know about this transition team, what is in the best interest of the American people? That is the guiding principle of this transition team. And how are these people going to work with Mr. Trump to fulfill those promises?
And oh, messing with you. Thanks for being here,
guys. Have a great weekend.
We appreciate
Thank
it. All right,
thanks,
hard
Tom.
turn
Thanks,
here.
Tom.
We're changing names all over the place. All right, we've got a Fox News alert right now on a turn in the news. A third straight night of anti-Trump riots across the country. Is it time for President Obama to call for calm? Plus, we've got Geraldo Rivera here to weigh in at the top of the hour on that.
And it's an unfriending frenzy after the election. People cutting ties with their friends who don't agree with them on Facebook. Kurt the Cyber Guy says that makes the problem even worse, and he is here to explain why. You're going to want to stick around for this. Welcome back. Well, in the wake of this election, some are taking to Facebook to do some house cleaning of their friends list. As one Clinton supporter put it, quote, I unfriended my brother and sister-in-law today, not because they were being particularly obnoxious, and I already knew they were Trump supporters, but because seeing their posts and likes just serves as a sad reminder to me of how little that we have in common.
Although unfriending people may be therapeutic, doing so means that people are further isolating themselves in a like-minded bubble. Kurt the Cyber Guy joins us now to talk about it.
It is true. I mean, so I think we're all in this place where we're trying to take deep breaths and just all figure out how we will work together, right? On Facebook, you have sort of two reasons people are unfriending right now. One is, hey, look, you know, I just don't like how you think, and I want you to think the way I think. And so because of their political leanings, they're unfriended. Well, that's sort of silly. Then you have the people like the guy just defriended who's into just racial spewing hatred that doesn't belong in my life anywhere, much less on Facebook. So I unfriended him. There is an unfriending frenzy going on. And, I mean, look at these statistics right now. In terms of this election, this was the most intensely popular social media experience on the planet, period. There are some stats that are coming in. Look at the amount of interaction on Facebook. 115 million people have generated 716 million likes, posts, comments, and shares on Facebook related to the election. We've never had any event in history that is causing people to polarize into
post families of how people can disagree and people don't want to get in those heated conversations. But you mentioned something that's interesting with unfriending people. We end up living in our own cul-de-sacs where we only want to be friends with people that we agree with. We only want to turn on channels listening to things that we agree with. It makes it so this country only becomes more divided, and that can be dangerous.
That can be dangerous. And also this, look, if you're going to unfriend somebody, don't make a rash decision. Rash decisions in life don't necessarily ever pay off unless you're escaping from a burning building.
Well,
so
by the way,
until
what does it
then,
mean to be
come
a
on.
friend on Facebook? Let's be honest here.
Right.
What is a true friend anyway? I mean, most people that you're friends with, they're like loosely connected. Maybe you know a friend of a friend. You maybe met them one time. Are you really actually a friend with that person? What do people
that's
do
why we're getting some of this,
Facebook?
Right. That's why we're
wouldn't
getting
call them anymore.
Right. Right. I mean, I remember being stopped in a hotel one time, and some girl goes, "Kurt." I was like, "Ah!" And she said, "Friends, Facebook." I'm like, "Oh, good. It's good to see you." I have no idea
I don't know
who
who
she
you
is,
are.
but hey, we love you anyway. Look at some of the comments that are coming in and why people are unfriending. This one right here, I mean, just some people are very interesting. This is Will Lazenby. I only unfriended one person. He made some political comments which were baseless and just mean. Plus, I really don't like him very much. And, well, for that matter, he owns several restaurants where the food sucks, so I thought it was a win-win situation. Now, that might be a smart unfriending. Well, he adds a little levity to what's going on. Take a look at your Facebook feed, though, right now, and see how many friends. I've dropped like 6 people. And not that I'm being very expressive. My passion and expression online is about technology.
We're running out of time, but we're going to have to unfriend you.
We've got Geraldo Rivera.
We would never unfriend you.
Good morning to you. It is Saturday, November 12th, 2016. I'm Abby Huntsman, and we begin with a Fox News alert. Anarchy in America. Radical left-wing activists riot in the streets, angry at Donald Trump, the president-elect, calling for unity. And is it time for the current president and Hillary Clinton to join him? Geraldo Rivera is here to react.
That's right. And millions of Americans cheered at the promise of prosecuting Hillary Clinton. But this morning, word that President-elect Trump may be ready to forgive and forget.
And he fought a bitter battle for the Republican nomination and lost. But does the new administration have a job for former opponent Ted Cruz? And we're not talking about a cabinet position. We're talking about something much bigger than that.
Huge.
Much huger than that. Fox and Friends Hour 4 starts right now. Oh, we're always celebrating food here. It is National Pizza Day. Geraldo Rivera here this morning. Would you like my pizza?
That pizza's a little
You don't
much
like the
for me.
smell?
You have to bring
National Pizza Day.
So we celebrate everything here on the show. Today is National Pizza Day, but we also always celebrate Geraldo Rivera, who we love having on the couch. Good to see you, sir.
I like National Pizza Afternoon.
Oh,
You got a goober on there.
Goober.
Can we get a close-up, actually?
Well, I
Can
want
we
to
get a
talk to you
close-up
about
of the goober?
can we talk about the Trump transition team? Now, it's kind of interesting to watch this morning and viewer comments rolling in saying, oh, Chris Christie, he's not been fired or he's just been sidelined. He's just been demoted. And other people saying, well, forget about Chris Christie. Mike Pence has just been elevated to this position of now running the transition team. What do you make of what happened?
Well, I think that the last phrasing was just being kind to Governor Christie, whose career was shattered by Bridgegate. The man was a leading contender to be the Republican nominee, and Bridgegate happened, and I remember his second inauguration, Christie's. It was said at the Statue of Liberty behind him. It was supposed to really propel him onto the Republican nomination in the White House, and then Bridgegate really humbled him. It made everybody think of every stereotype of just a bully and someone who made his subordinates take the fall for him. I thought that he was lucky that Trump trusted him, gave him some political life, Chris Christie, for that for the year and a half of the campaign. Now, it's time for the grown-up in the room. Mike Pence, everyone is giving him very, very high reviews. He may be the most powerful vice president ever, maybe even more than Dick Cheney, as Donald Trump relies on him. Right. Governor Pence knows how to run a government, and it is, to me, totally fitting that Governor Pence be in charge of the transition.
Speaking of grown-ups in the room, these riots, they've been going on for the third day now, getting out of hand, quite frankly. And as our own Bill Riley said, this is just disgraceful. This is not what our country's about. Is it time for President Obama to step in and say something?
Well, first of all, I think the bitter irony of all of what's going on here is that the cities where they are venting their rage are all cities that went overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. So presumably they are destroying the property of people who are allied with them politically. So these are the political friends. In Manhattan, you demonstrated in Manhattan, 87% of Manhattan voted for Hillary Clinton. Portland, Berkeley, San Francisco, Los Angeles. So what are you doing? You're wrecking your own family stuff.
Geraldo, these cities, and we saw in Philadelphia, I mean, the numbers were down. They didn't come out for Hillary Clinton in the way that they came out for President Obama. So they sat on their hands and didn't vote. And now they're voting after the election by smashing storefronts.
It's so funny. I was going to Broadway Wednesday night. We were trying to cross, Erica, my wife and I were trying to cross 6th Avenue, and 1,000 of the demonstrators came marching up 6th Avenue there. And I was just thinking as I saw them, how many of you actually voted?
Right.
I mean, did you vote? Did you vote? And I really, now in terms of what they are doing, I mean, you've really got to come down hard. When you break someone's property, when you hurt somebody, like the thugs that were beating up that white guy who voted for Trump, the Detroit scene, it was so horrible. That, and the other thing was just as horrible to me was white students shouting white power and build the wall in their schools and putting up signs that say colored people drink from this water fountain, white people from that. I think both that is hate. Hate crime should be prosecuted as such. We should
but you're not
be intolerant.
You're not apples to appling here. We're looking at business being burned down. We're looking at things being thrown at
to
cops.
Me, I'm telling you, Pete, I'm telling you.
No, the mass scale of this over 3 days,
intolerant.
it's going to grow into the weekend.
A hateful act is a hateful act, whether it's that you're seeing or whether it's someone shouting white power.
Fair enough. One is speech, as bad as it may be. Another is assaulting cops.
What I said was not speech. That's hate.
Well,
I understand.
What's your line of hate speech and speech? I mean, I get it. There's really terrible speech.
I was a protester in 1968. I was arrested in 1969 in Washington, D.C., in Donald Rumsfeld's office for a protest. You protest. That is a long tradition of that, protected by the United States Constitution. If you're willing, as a person committing civil disobedience, to take the legal consequences, then that is part of a long tradition.
Have you ever seen this,
But if you're breaking stuff, if you're absolutely upset.
But have you seen this after an election? Have you seen this type of violence? And we're showing you these videos here after a presidential election.
I don't remember. I know that in 1968 in the Chicago conventions, it was during the process where all of the violence happened.
Yeah, but nothing like this.
I want to be very, very clear here. The person who did that deserves to go to jail. A riot is a Class C felony in Oregon. You go to jail for that. You go to jail for you sit your ass in jail for a year. Let's see how much you're going to break the next time.
But Geraldo, you remember the 2008 riots, right? That didn't happen when Barack Obama was elected and promised to fundamentally transform our country. I mean, this is a problem exclusive, violently wise, riot-wise, to the left. Shouldn't Barack Obama be coming out and saying, maybe with Trump, maybe Obama and Trump come out together and say enough is enough?
You ask me to come to ask of Hillary Clinton and the Democrats that they join President-elect Trump, or President Obama joins President-elect Trump in making sure that the message gets out to these anarchists that this will not be tolerated.
Why not have President-elect Trump come out with Obama?
What I'm saying is, I say you condemn all of this excessive behavior together. We are one country. The great thing about President Obama and President-elect Trump meeting in the Oval Office and shaking hands was we saw in that scene that this was the continuity of the republic. This is the peaceful transition of power. Now let both these men say to whoever it is that loves them, this is unacceptable, whether you're right or left, if you're saying white power or if you're smashing someone's store. These are equally unacceptable to us, right. And let's go forward together as one nation, right. And then you sort out how he does, whether you oppose him, whether you agree with him.
You mentioned jail. One person who might not be going to jail could be Hillary Clinton, and that was the thing that we kept hearing during the campaign, lock her up. Now, in this interview with 60 Minutes, Donald Trump on Sunday night seemed to suggest that we've turned the page here. We got more important things to focus on than Hillary Clinton: jobs, the economy, health care. Doesn't seem to be leaning in the direction of appointing a special prosecutor for Hillary Clinton. What's your sense of it?
Let me say, just thank God. I remember one thing, and with sitting next to a war hero, I'm humbled. Back in 2003, it was a British officer, one of the Royal Irish units, who said, ferocious in battle, magnanimous in victory. I want Donald Trump, who was ferocious in battle, to be magnanimous in victory now. The last thing this nation needs, and exactly the prescription for keeping open the rural wounds that the country now is going through, and so many people are traumatized, even as other people are elated. The worst thing we could do right now is to have a special prosecutor bring Hillary Clinton up there. You want to see that same cast of characters again? Do you want to really see Jason Chaffetz and Trey Gowdy and Darrell Issa and all these guys going after Hillary Clinton?
What about the law being the law? You have people that say, you know what, she did something wrong here. That needs to be looked into. She was treated differently. There are a lot of folks out there, even Mike Pence said this in the debate, saying if it were my son who's in the military who did this, he would have been removed from his post. What about following through with the law?
I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Gerald Ford succeeded Richard Nixon. Spiro Agnew had already quit because of his legal problems. One of the first things President Ford did was pardon Richard Nixon.
Ended his career, though. Ended his political career.
It did. He paid the price for it. Unfortunately, it was something that came to haunt him. But imagine. First of all, let me say what he accomplished with that pardon. He ended the Watergate era. He ended the disruption and turmoil from the Vietnam War. With that single act, that bold stroke, President Nixon is hereby pardoned and therefore removed from the judicial processes. The nation could go on and deal with whatever the nation had to deal with post-Vietnam. I want President Obama to pardon Hillary Clinton, and I want him to do it preemptively. Well, so was Richard Nixon. Right. Richard Nixon was never charged.
Right.
He was pardoned for any and all.
President Obama to pardon Hillary Clinton.
I call on President Obama to pardon Hillary Clinton right now for any acts that may or may not have been done regarding.
What message does that send, though, to so many people about fairness?
You can understand why
the message. I understand that. I'm a pragmatic idealist. I think of myself with grand notions, but I want things to be done. Right now, what does this country need? We are a nation where 60 million voted one way and 60 million voted the other way, where the cities voted one way and the rural and suburban areas voted another way, where white people voted one way and people of color voted a different way. what the president has to do is try to bring everybody together. We're not going to heal these divides overnight, but the last thing we need is a high-profile persecution of Hillary Clinton, who I submit has paid enough for all of her alleged misdeeds. She has paid enough.
Well, she paid at the ballot box is where she paid.
Well, she's paid in her soul. She's paid in her
What about the guys
life?
that paid in Benghazi? What about the guys that paid elsewhere? The national security secret she let go because she was willy-nilly with our... I mean, that has to matter.
I absolutely reject your characterization of Benghazi. I do. And I was almost killed in Libya. I know the Benghazi scene, and I tell you, Benghazi was the beginning of the malignant hype that ultimately brought down the Clintons. It was basically what happened post-Benghazi was political much more than it was military. And the political, it was the beginning of the campaign that destroyed Hillary Clinton's character. It went from Benghazi to the private email server, and then WikiLeaks joined in, and who knows what job the Russians did, and I think that deserves to be probed. That going forward, to me, what I would like to see, what role, and this, rather than whether Hillary Clinton is going to be prosecuted for imaginary, real or imagined offenses, what I would like to see is a real probe, a bilateral probe led by the Republican administration, by the Trump administration, into what exact role did Russia play or not play in the WikiLeaks scandal. Did they penetrate our cybersecurity? Are they now a threat to manipulate all of our elections going forward? This was all Democrats. They WikiLeaked the hell out of everything the Democrats had.
Boomerang back at
but
some
wait until they start WikiLeaking the Republicans.
Sure.
I mean, how would everybody watching right now, how would you like your worst enemy to have access to all your social media, every email you ever sent, every text message you ever sent, to your girlfriend, to your boss, to your best friend, drunk, late at night? My goodness.
But rumors also cover for what Hillary Clinton had done. She made the choice to set up a private email server. She made that decision, and now we're sort of whitewashing that, oh, well...
And Geraldo,
you really believe that that's what Hillary Clinton went through as a white woman?
warned her about this.
And that could have been just as dangerous. When we talk about hacking, we talk about people getting into classified information and the role that she was in. That is just as dangerous and frightening for this country as you're talking about with the WikiLeaks and with Russia, whatever their involvement might have been.
Potentially, Abby, that may be so, but I have not heard to this day one specific allegation of any specific U.S. national security secret that was leaked as a result of Hillary Clinton's private email. There is not one allegation.
Except for the fact that there are likely 5 foreign governments cracked into her server and had access to her emails in real time. I mean, that has real implications.
If that bothers you, why don't you express that same passion regarding the Russians? Here you're saying that 5 countries may have hacked Hillary Clinton, but I don't see that fury directed at Putin, at the KGB, at the Russians.
You know what I'm glad
they
about?
really
I'm
did stuff to us.
We really healed this morning. I really feel like we really... Thank you.
The one thing I just want to say is that Pete and I spent a lot of time in Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan.
We have 10 seconds.
For the 4 guys who got killed in Bagram with that bombing, God bless them. Thank you for your service.
Amen.
So sorry.
Geraldo, good to see you this morning. We're going to be right back after this.
We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Some quick headlines for you. A terrifying moment caught on video for one Florida firefighter. Witnesses in Pompano Beach caught him falling nearly 20 feet to the ground after opening the nozzle on his hose, the water pressure shooting him off the ladder. Thankfully, he's expected to be okay. And oh dear, imagine shopping at the mall and running into this. Yeah, he was there for the Black Friday deals, but they don't start for another few weeks. So that buck was stuck inside an Oklahoma outlet mall. The animal's so terrified it jumped right through the storefront window. What if you're going to get insurance on that, Abby?
mad that things aren't on sale yet.
Yeah.
Hilarious. That is crazy. Thanks, Clayton. All right. Well, President-elect Donald Trump is narrowing his list of potential cabinet picks. So who are some of the big names being floated? Fox News contributor Lisa Booth has some predictions for us this morning. Good morning, Lisa. Always good to have you
Hi,
here.
Abby. Always good to be with you.
So we've got some names up here. The one thing that sticks out first is everyone on here was loyal to President-elect Trump throughout the entire campaign, and he takes loyalty very seriously.
He absolutely does. And so I think we're going to see a lot of these positions filled with some of these Donald Trump loyalists. But that being said, he's also going to have to look outside of his inner circle. I mean, he has also spoken about sort of changing things up. We know that he ran a very unconventional presidential campaign, so I wouldn't be surprised if he brings some people in that don't necessarily have, some of the, have that Washington, D.C. experience.
Some of these names are familiar to us that have been on the curvy couch throughout the entire election.
Absolutely.
Rudy Giuliani, Ben Carson, John Bolton. Let's start with Giuliani. Where do you see him going?
So potentially Attorney General. He was a U.S. attorney in New York, obviously mayor of New York City as well, known for cracking down on crime. So I think Attorney General would be a position that Donald Trump would look at him
What about Homeland Security for him?
Potentially Homeland Security as well. But, I think Attorney General would probably be the best fit, at least in my personal opinion, if Donald Trump's listening and wants to.
Maybe as well.
General Michael Flynn. I think Defense Secretary. Look, he has been very loyal. He's been one of his top advisors. The only thing for Lieutenant General Michael Flynn is he would actually have to get a waiver from Congress because he wouldn't be able to fill the position for the next 5 years. So he'd have to get a special waiver from Congress. But, potentially Donald Trump would try to make that happen.
You would forget about Senate confirmations.
Exactly.
Those are not easy to get
Those
through.
are not, no, they're not easy, but, given the fact that Republicans control, a majority of the seats in the Senate, hopefully move people forward.
All right, Corey Lewandowski. That's an interesting. He was seen meeting at the Trump Tower, yesterday. He, of course, was at CNN throughout the remainder of the election. Where do you see him going?
I don't know if I would put him here. I mean, I think if anything, it would be Chief of Staff, but I have a personal favorite for that, and that's Kellyanne Conway. Because she is the first woman to run a successful presidential or to manage a successful presidential campaign. So I think that...
and she also knows, well, they both do, but the reason he put her in that position is she knows him so well.
She knows him so well, and she did such a good job running his campaign, and he also seems to listen to her.
He does.
She's
and he
like
doesn't
the Donald
listen to
Trump
everyone.
whisperer, yes.
All right, Sarah Palin. This name's been floated around, but for what job?
So I think the Interior Secretary, and this is why... Alaska is obviously rich in natural resources, so I think this would be a position as governor of, previous governor of Alaska that, she would have a knowledge base about and could be good for him on.
Ben Carson, that is a name that's been floated, and I think he's even mentioned he's willing to serve if asked.
Yeah, and he has been with Trump as well. He's been another loyalist. So let's put him at, HHS Secretary, because he is a former pediatric neurosurgeon. He's really pioneered that industry, and he's done a lot of firsts in the industry as well. So I think he would be a good fit for that and sort of forward thinking.
Other than Chief of Staff, arguably the most important role here is Secretary of State, especially with everything we're dealing with today.
Right.
That's going to be a tough one to fill.
It is.
Maybe Ambassador John Bolton.
Yeah, maybe Ambassador John Bolton, former United Nations ambassador.
Or Senator Bob Corker wouldn't be a bad option.
Bob Corker has been rumored as well because he is, of course, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. And originally when Donald Trump was eyeing who he was going to pick as a vice president, Bob Corker was one of the guys whose name was floated around for that position. So
this is
he's obviously looked at him before.
Stephen Bannon, that would be an interesting one because he doesn't get along with Paul Ryan. So if he were up for Chief of Staff, that would make for some awkward moments.
That would make things dicey. Potentially Chief of Staff. I don't really know where else he would fill, or potentially just sort of a advisor role in some capacity. So
and there may be many other names to this list. But Lisa, it's good to have you here to start to speculate.
We'll start the speculation. So.
All right, well, the president-elect vowed to repeal and replace Obamacare, but did he have a change of heart after his closed-door meeting with President Obama? The revealing new interview, that is next. Plus, does the new administration have a job for Trump's former opponent, Ted Cruz? And we're not talking about the cabinet. It is much bigger than that. It is huge. Stick with us.
Well, it looks like Wall Street is bullish on Donald Trump's surprise victory, and now that much of the market rallied just days after the election. We take a look at some of the stocks that could succeed Big League under our new president-elect.
Big League or Big Lee, whatever it is. Here to weigh in, the host of Making Money on the Fox Business Network, Charles Payne. Charles, the stock market rebounded big time after the election.
Big time.
What are we looking at here as far as stocks that could benefit?
Well, already have. Because, I mean, listen, we've had the last couple of days have been mind-boggling. The low-hanging fruit stuff was private prisons. I'm not going to ask anyone to chase them. I mean, you have two main names. One was up 45%. So the other names that both candidates ran on infrastructure, but Donald Trump's plan was more robust. So you saw names like U.S. Steel, Caterpillar do extraordinarily well. I think his plan is not going to be $500 billion. It's going to be a $1 trillion plan over the next 10 years. Look for those names to do well. But then there have been some surprises, some things you really didn't think about. Restaurants had a great week this week. Why? Get rid of Obamacare and the onerous restraints that they put on restaurant companies in general, and those names have started to take off as well. Defense contractors, we're going to rebuild our military. Those are pretty low-hanging fruit, pretty obvious. The Lockheed Martin is probably the name I like the most there because not only do they sell the right parts for modern-day warfare, but they have a great dividend yield as well.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, are you surprised, though? There was a lot of talk if Donald Trump were to win, the market would just crash, that the prices would just fall.
Right.
We didn't see that happen.
Well, we saw it happen as the numbers were coming in and the pre-market stuff. No, at one point, before the market opened at 2 a.m., the stock market was indicating it opened down 800 points.
Down, yeah.
800 points lower. But here's the thing. Donald Trump's acceptance speech was amazing. It was not the Donald Trump that the media had portrayed. Then we saw Hillary Clinton. Concession speech was pretty good. Donald Trump and Barack Obama got together. They had a great conversation. And then even yesterday, the announcement of the transition team, the announcement that perhaps Donald Trump would keep certain parts of Obamacare. What you're seeing is, I think I heard someone say pragmatic. Again, the Donald Trump that wasn't portrayed. Wall Street was afraid of the bombastic Donald Trump who would head into a trade war on day one. That's not what we're seeing so far. So obviously, Wall Street loves the notion of lower taxes and less regulations, and the notion that perhaps people keeping more money in their pocket, it will circulate in society.
You're working on a new report on your website.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. We got
WStreet.com. People have to go there. I'm telling you. First of all, I made people a ton of money this week, but I'm going to lay it. I'm going to lay it out for you. The names to be in, including my prediction. We're going to get major concessions on NAFTA. NAFTA, maybe by Inauguration Day. Watch the truckers. I'll give you the right names on the site, WStreet.com.
This week, WStreet.com. You need to make me some money.
I know.
trying, baby.
What about us here?
You guys don't need it.
Good to see you, Charles.
See you later.
Thanks, Charles. Well, everyone focusing on Donald Trump's big win, but what will Melania Trump be like as First Lady? Our next guest says Melania reminds her of Nancy Reagan.
What do you think about becoming First Lady of the United States if Donald Trump does win? What do you envision as First Lady?
I would help children and I would help women. Also, I will, in 21st century, it's very important now, we see social media, and I see negativity that children go through. And it's really sad because social media could be positive, but could be very damaging as well.
Well, during the campaign, Melania Trump told us that she'd take on cyberbullying as the First Lady, and now that she'll be moving into the White House, what can we expect from her in the first 100 days?
Let's ask presidential historian, author of The Burning of the White House, James and Dolly Madison and the War of 1812, Jane Hampton Cook. Jane, welcome to the show.
Morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So it's interesting to look at the dynamic. We were all thinking maybe we would see Bill Clinton as the first husband. Now we're looking at Melania Trump as the First Lady. What kind of a First Lady do you think she'll be?
Well, I think Melania Trump will bring a lot of glamour to the White House, much like the Reagans brought some Hollywood glamour. Because Melania is a former model, I think we'll see some of that, which is exciting and fun, as always. And I also think because she wants to usher in a culture change with social media, I think she'll be a little bit like Dolly Madison, who ushered in a culture change to Washington. She softened the rough edges of Congress by inviting both parties in campaign. And I think that's where that's the closest parallel in modern history is just say no to drugs. I think Melania's desire to soften the social media culture will be probably similar to that campaign from the Reagan years.
Yeah, and it's such a challenge we face, something that everyone can agree with, the cyberbullying issue. But she also has her own story to tell, being from Slovenia, being an immigrant herself. But you say it is her love for America that's going to bring a lot to the White House.
Well, I love it when I hear her story because she's so proud to be an American. And she's the second First Lady to be born abroad. Louisa Adams was born in England, and what Louisa was able to do with her husband, President John Quincy Adams, was to help Europeans better understand America because she was born in Europe. So I think Melania will be able to bridge that gap, where Europeans will be able to better understand America, and I think Americans will just fall in love with America's love, Melania's love of the American dream.
We saw with Michelle Obama, of course, when she would go out on the campaign trail, she was, I think, at the highest approval rating of any of the Democrats, even higher than Hillary Clinton, even higher than her husband. She was a great public speaker. We saw her give a couple of speeches over the past couple of months. Are we going to see Melania do a lot of speeches, do you think?
I don't know if she's going to grow into that speaking role in the same way that Michelle Obama did. We probably will see that. But one thing that Michelle Obama made very clear at the beginning was that she was a mother to her daughters first. And you have seen that Melania really wants to educate and be a mother to her son Barron. So I think at first you'll see maybe as she gets things off the ground, it may not be as as big and bold as Michelle Obama ended up being. It'll probably be a slower start, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and that's like we have the photo there of the two meeting at the White House this week. Probably what they talked about first and foremost is being a mother, because that is the most important thing of all. Well, good to have you here. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
All right, well, we saved the best for last. It is National Pizza Day, and of course, we're celebrating here on Fox and Friends with pizza.
Big Daddy.
Plaza. Pete is so excited. He's been eating pizza all morning.
And burgers.
And everything else.
Check his cholesterol.